Hello and welcome to this special interview on Arabiya News. I'm Melinda Nucifora. The Gaza ceasefire is at risk of collapse. A little over halfway through phase one of the deal, and Hamas announced it was postponing the release of hostages, accusing Israel of violating the terms of the agreement. In response, Israel has threatened a return to war if hostages aren't freed on Saturday. For an update on the current situation, I'm joined by Israel's Deputy Foreign Minister, Sharren Haskel. Thank you so much for joining us, Deputy Minister.
Hello, it's a pleasure and thank you for inviting me to your show.
Can we begin with some clarification on the comments we heard from Prime Minister Netanyahu on Tuesday? Is Israel demanding Hamas release all Israeli hostages by noon on Saturday, or just the hostages that were already scheduled for release on the weekend?
So look, obviously we are backing Trump's declaration asking to return all of the hostages. There's no reason for Hamas to hold our hostages and to prolong the situation. When we signed with Hamas, which is a terrorist organization, a ceasefire agreement, we knew we were signing a deal with a terrorist organization, and we knew they cannot be trusted. They violated the agreement from the start. For example, not giving us the list of the names of the people that are going to be released, or not until today, not giving the status of which hostage, in what condition they are. The fact that they didn't release Arabiya, which she was meant to be released among the first one, was another violation, a brutal violation of the agreement as well. And now Hamas is coming and complaining about what we did because they didn't release Arabiya, to wait with the returning of the Gazan citizen to the north until they release her, like they actually committed to. Well, it's absolutely unacceptable.
And so to clarify, Israel wants all hostages released on Saturday, which is a departure from what has been agreed to in phase one of the deal. On top of that, Hamas is saying, the Gazan Health Ministry says more than 100 Gazans have been killed during a ceasefire. So does Israel take any responsibility for the current potential derailing of this ceasefire in phase one?
Hamas is the one that derailed this agreement from the start by not committing to what they signed on from day one. Now they're coming and complaining, is absolutely absurd. The fact that they declared today that they will not release the hostages on Saturday, as it was agreed, that's breaking the ceasefire agreement. And so that responsibility is on Hamas and Hamas alone.
So do you think the region should now be preparing for war?
Well, look, we knew from the start that signing an agreement with a terrorist organization is going to be difficult. This wasn't a good deal for Israel. This deal also released thousands of murderers, monsters who commit some of the worst crimes that you can ever imagine against innocent Israelis. And they were released without any restriction back into the civilization. And that's not a good deal, but it was a deal that we compromised on to make sure that our family members are going to be returned as quickly as possible. With the images that came on Saturday, knowing how they're abusing our family members, our brothers and our sisters, our husbands, our children, 2 babies, knowing that they're starving them, physically abusing them, emotionally, psychologically, torturing them. And now they dare to say they will not release the 4 hostages as they signed on the agreement. I think that calls on a breaking of the agreement. And we said from the start that if Hamas break the agreement they sign on, we will be prepared at any point of time to resume our war against Hamas.
There are some skeptics who would say that Israel never intended to negotiate to phase two and that it would return to the conflict, as some of the coalition partners within the government have always said they wanted. What would you say to that proposal?
Well, I say that Netanyahu arrived in Washington to start the negotiation on the second phase in good faith, with an open heart and an open mind. He sat with Witkoff and with Waltz, the people who are in charge of it from Trump's side, and we've outlined our needs and the framework that we need to continue for the next stage. Why would we do that if it wasn't in good faith to try and reach the second part or the next ceasefire that is going to release all of our family members? I mean, this is our goal. Our goal of Israel is not a war. Our goal is to release our family members as quickly and as safely as possible. And if we can secure that in a diplomatic solution, of course we'll prefer that. I mean, what else? After Netanyahu and Witkoff discussion, he went to Qatar to mediate with the prime minister of Qatar to see whether we can negotiate a deal. We sent a delegation to Doha just 2 days ago. So our intention is to try and mediate. Unfortunately, Hamas, time after time, a terrorist organization, has proven that it doesn't want a diplomatic solution. I mean, look on what had happened now. This ceasefire, this agreement, in August, it was on the table. Matter of fact, there were three propositions in August: the Qatari proposition, the Russian proposition, and the Egyptian proposition, to which Israel said yes to all of them. Hamas is the one that refused. Hamas is the one that didn't want that ceasefire. Matter of fact, they didn't even came to the table. We were mediating this deal with the countries who are the mediators, while Hamas refused to send representation to come and even speak about these propositions.
Well, let me put this to you then. If
Hamas
does release the hostages on Saturday, do you see this deal moving to phase 2 and the fighting not resuming? Is there still a chance for that?
I think that will be a good start. I really think it will be a good start. About the second stage, obviously, Israel outlined what is our needs. And our needs is to bring back all of our family members as quickly and as safely as possible, and to make sure that the 7th of October never happens again. I mean, remember, this is the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. Those are crimes against humanity that were committed against innocent Israelis, including massacring babies, raping little girls, burning our grandparents alive. We need to make sure that something like that never happen again. And that's why Hamas and Hamas leadership, a terrorist organization that on record in interviews say that they will commit this crime over and over again. They will commit another
way that
the
US says it will prevent that from happening again is to move all the Palestinians out of Gaza. So if the US, as President Trump has declared, if the US is to take control of Gaza, what role would Israel play in that scenario?
I'll tell you what. I think it's still early to talk about inside details and to focus on that.
But you have said that Israel supports the move.
That these are details that are going to be outlined. But what I think about Trump's proposition is that everybody have to keep an open heart and an open mind about it, because every solution that was brought until now failed. And we paid the price for it. I mean, think about it. We've tried a territorial solution. We disengaged from Gaza in 2005, evacuating every single living Jew from Gaza. We pulled out all of our troops. We even took the dead who were buried there outside and buried them in Israel. And this territorial solution didn't work. They invested this independent territory into fighting for the complete obliteration of the state of Israel and murdering all the Jews. That's the platform of Hamas, and that's what they committed to. So this territorial solution did not work because it's not a territorial war. It's not a territorial dispute. This is a cultural and a religious dispute. And so when people came to us and said, okay, let's find an economic solution, give them some insight or something to aspire for. You know, they've invested billions of dollars in Gaza, including Qatar. We've actually given a lot of permits to Gazan residents to come and work in Israel. This was about 5 to 10 times more the salary that they earned in Gaza, in the hope of creating mutual life by giving them somewhat of a future. And it ended in the 7th of October massacre, the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. So we are the one who paid the price for a solution that didn't work.
That if the US were to take control of Gaza and relocate the Palestinian population, you risk radicalizing another whole generation of displaced people, which perhaps just raises the risk of there being more conflict.
So I want to say a few things about it. I think that, first of all, when we bring solutions that are outside of the box, we have to keep an open heart and an open mind, because the solution that didn't work until now means that we need to find other solutions. Now, Trump sees Gaza and the devastation there and says, we need to actually temporarily evacuate the Palestinians, rebuild it, and then get them back. But things needs to be managed differently as well. I think this is something that all of us have to sit together and actually talk. And you know what? If that puts pressure on the Palestinians, I'm happy about it, because maybe now they'll be pressured to accept the Jews, to accept that we're not going to go anywhere either. And we have to find a solution to live side by side. So I welcome that. And another thing, and it's important to note as well, you talk to me about the radicalization of another generation. What had happened in Gaza until now? They have the UNRWA education system that they've been taught for. Okay, this is a radical jihadist education system
that has been disputed by the United Nations. So let's move on.
No, that's not true. The United Nations actually affirmed it. And we have mountains of research and evidence to show that children as young as 3 years old in the school camps of Hamas are being taught how to stab, how to shoot weapons,
the UN still
and how to murder
UNRWA.
Jews.
But let me ask you this, Deputy Minister. In Israel's mind, is a two-state solution officially off the table?
Well, I think that we cannot talk about it right now, because we will not reward again the worst crime that was committed against the Jews since the Holocaust, the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, with a state. This would be actually like rewarding the worst terror act against our country. You know what we need to talk about? We need to talk about the Palestinian leadership. And we need a brave Palestinian to rise up and to actually say, I want to create a better future for my people. I accept the state of Israel will not go anywhere. And I want to find a solution when we can live side by side. When there's going to be a Palestinian leader that can say that in Arabic, not in English, but in Arabic, to its own people, that will be the first step about reconciliation and about building a bridge between the two people. But until now, there isn't a single Palestinian leader that can actually say that.
Saudi Arabia has reiterated that there will be no normalization of relations with Israel without the declaration of or the intention of a two-state solution. So is Israel willing to abandon efforts to re-establish a relationship with Saudi Arabia?
Look, I think that many things were said before, okay? And I think that also everybody claimed that peace is not a possibility without a Palestinian solution. Well, there was a peace agreement signed with Egypt without the Palestinian. There was a peace agreement
Saudi
signed
Arabia
with
has reiterated in recent days, as early as
the Abraham
quickly
Accord.
as Sunday,
and I want to say
that they want a two-state solution before they will normalize relations. Is Israel willing to relinquish all the work that's been done until now?
I think that many statements of many Arab leaders before that stated that thing as well were proven that peace is actually something more important than anything. And I think that MBS, being an advanced leader that is aspiring also, and I've seen some of his reform and how he's been modernizing the country. I look at his statement, and his statement that said that peace with Israel or normalization with Israel is a strategic asset. And it is. And I think that that's the place where we need to start from.
Do you fear, though, that Prime Minister Netanyahu's rhetoric, his actions, have lost the goodwill of the Saudi Arabian kingdom and its people, and has perhaps damaged the work that's been done until now?
Absolutely not. I think on the contrary. Look, we've had the worst years in the Middle East. Years of instability, years of war with so many deaths. We need stability. And when Trump came in with a very brave and confronting declaration about Lebanon, it brought a ceasefire and it brought stability to Lebanon. And we hope that Lebanon is going to grow out now from the Iranian occupation and liberate its economy and liberate its society and liberate its politics. Those grandiose declarations that you might find provocative actually created stability and actually can create bridges. It brought the ceasefire. That's the same with Hamas, with his grandiose declaration. Trump is the reason why Hamas actually came to the negotiation table. Trump and his declaration is what signed this ceasefire. And I think that some of these declarations are actually putting more pressure for stability in our region. We know who our enemy is. And the radicalization of different groups comes from one source. The funding of those groups come from one source. And that is a mutual enemy. And stability is the greatest weapon against them. And I think that this is a strategic asset and a bridge that we need to build between allies.
Just finally, Deputy Foreign Minister, does Israel still support the idea that a Palestinian state should be created on Saudi Arabian land?
I haven't heard a suggestion like that.
The Prime Minister himself made a comment along those lines. Is that something being discussed in Israel?
So I didn't read or am aware of any declaration like that. So if I'm not aware of a suggestion like that, I'm not sure it actually exists.
He did actually suggest during his visit to the US that the Palestinians should be moved to a territory in Saudi Arabia. Do you think that that's a viable option?
I say again, I heard the declarations of Prime Minister. I watched the declaration of President Trump. I did not encounter any declaration like that.
All right. Well, we appreciate your time. We appreciate you bringing us up to date on where Israel stands in this very precarious time. Israel's Deputy Foreign Minister, Sharren Haskel, thank you for joining us on Al Arabiya News.
Thank you very much.